Hello and welcome to Buzz Banter. I'm Das Hap.
And I'm Renwin.
And today we come to you with a movie review.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Snow White and the Huntsman.
So... Alright, you obviously like this film more than me.
I know. Well, I don't know if I like it for all the right reasons. Right?
You liked it for the pretty man.
Yes, and the women too. I like prettiness in general, and I love fairies, and I love magic, and it's just like, it's like catering. And I also love remakes of classic fairy tales, and that's why this fits so well into this. Like if you Sydney White and the Seven Nerds or something. I don't know what the movie's called, but it's like a modern day Snow White and stuff like A Cinderella Story. Like I'm such a sucker for those kind of films. Like I love them so much, and I love seeing how different people adapt each story, right? Because I'm a really big fan of adaptations. I love how people interpret it and then make it their own, and this film definitely had its own take to it. And that's why it started off really well, too. It did start off, it had a solid start off, and I granted it did fall apart a little bit later on, but it did have a solid start, and that was enough for me to keep going.
I agree with you. It does have a very solid start. It explains everything. You see a couple of the themes right from the get-go that reoccur throughout the film. And to its credit, its aesthetic style and everything is very appealing. Now, that being said, it does start off very well, and then Kristen Stewart starts talking. And that's one of the big problems in this film. You have no balance when it comes to the acting or the writing for characters. Snow White has terrible writing, is played by an actress who cannot act, and who is supposed to be the fairest in the land, but is not as fair as the evil queen. Yes,
but like I said, when we were discussing this before, because we do that, but yeah, I think the main point of it wasn't that she was fair in looks-wise. I mean, like the way I saw this film is like this woman is so beautiful, but she's so corrupt, and that's why she's not the fairest. Even though she's so beautiful on the outside, and Kristen Stewart, who isn't as beautiful, but still has a nicer heart, which makes her even more fair. Fair, as in more beautiful. Even though she wasn't.
It plays more into this sort of role of innocence and all of that, and purity. And I think that's the big thing. She's more pure than the evil queen. But okay, here's a little problem in the beginning. Snow White's mother wishes for a child that would be as fair as snow, with raven black hair and full blood red lips.
Yes.
Then you end up with Kristen Stewart and the young Snow White, all of them who have brown hair. I mean, my hair is blacker.
Nobody has black hair.
Yes, but this looks pretty black. It takes a very bright light to make me look brown-haired. I realize that the actual pigment is still brown, but the fact of the matter is, you see a dirty blonde-haired girl playing the young Snow White when she's described as having raven black hair. Actually, Kristen Stewart herself doesn't look like she has black hair until after she dies.
Oh yeah.
So there's a very serious, there's a little bit of a problem there, but I think the central problem with this film is that it's a modern interpretation of a story that maybe cannot be modernized in this way, and well, let me explain that. If you go back and watch the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the one that Disney made, not the fairy tale, because that's a completely different thing.
I don't actually remember it that well.
The fairy tale is pretty graphic.
I know, I remember the fairy tale, I don't remember the Disney version. Mostly because it's Snow White is actually one of my least favorite Disneys. Okay, next to Peter Pan. But I'm not saying that I don't because Peter Pan is one of my favorite stories. I just feel like Disney failed to execute it well. And same with Snow White. Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Peter Pan are my three least favorite Disney movies.
And that's fair enough. But if you go back and watch the old Snow White's Disney film, it's annoying by today's standards. Everyone's in this very clear-cut role, you don't really have explanations to a lot of stuff, and it's just... there's not really much there. You just kind of sit, you watch, and you leave afterwards. We've moved past that in terms of what we expect from our entertainment. And this film attempts that. It tries to give you a more complex villain than just this queen who's incredibly vain. But the problem with that is, within the realm of this story, she's supposed to be a very clear-cut villainess, and instead she's written off as the most sympathetic character in this story. The more you find out about her,
the more you feel bad.
the more you empathize with her. You want to see her have the happy ending. And like, she really comes off as this person who became what she is because the world made her that way. She had no choice in the powers that she has. It was a curse put upon her when her village was raided and she was taken. And she's basically done all of this to sort of survive in the world because she's become incredibly jaded because of her life experiences. For God's sake, she was like 9 years old when she's taken from her village by this king, turned into his wife. She actually tells Snow White's father that she was ruined. I'm pretty sure she was raped by that king. She has actually a very hard to deal with backstory, and you feel bad for her more than you do Snow White. Because she's just been in a tower. That's it.
Yeah, and there are points in the movie where Snow White tries to sympathize with her, but at the same time, and I don't want to blame Kristen Stewart. I know a lot of people hate Kristen Stewart mostly because of her role in Twilight, and I do want to give her a little bit more credit as an actress because she is not whatever her name was, Bella, right? She's not Bella, you know, and like the role for Bella kind of fell flat, and then she couldn't do much about that. But Kristen Stewart...
Well, Bella was always written, even in the original novels, as a very flat, sort of worthless character.
But again, Snow White was also written in a way that couldn't actually... And it sucks for Kristen Stewart, because it's a role that she can't actually do anything about.
But she keeps getting these same roles. It's like, in the original version, you did nothing, so here's the new version, which kind of you do nothing until the very, 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 very end. Yeah,
and it kind of just, like, I like this movie, but, like, I didn't like about Snow White, and this is why I didn't like the Disney version as well, where she just, like, trances around and everyone loves her for no reason, you know? And then it's like, she's not even that nice.
No,
she isn't. Like, if you think about it, like, if you actually look at it, I want to see someone who's actually really nice, and that's why she's the fairest of all. And they try to make that, and I can see that they try to make that in the film, but she's not that nice. She's just kind of trouncing around, and she like, oh, you know...
Oh look, flowers are blooming around me. Ha 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 ha. Surprise magic powers that aren't really magic or something.
Yeah, and that really bothers me, because I'm like, you know, I'm like, I come from, like, I like to think about, like, where it's like, you know, the ugly isn't always the ugly and stuff like that. You know, that's like my... I think trope or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And so when I see someone who's supposed to be playing that role and it just isn't that nice, it just kind of really gets to me. It's like I want to see this niceness come out.
Fair enough. That being said, like there are quite a few pretty people in this film. There's
the guy from Pirates of the Caribbean,
whose name no one remembers because
his actor's name is Sam. Okay.
The actor's name is Sam. No one remembers who he was in Pirates. He was the guy with the mermaid girlfriend at the end.
Yes. I was so excited though when I saw him though. Like I was like, oh my god, he looks so familiar. He's from Pirates of the Caribbean. And
my god, that film did not actually end your career. Congratulations. Oh, this one might.
No, I think he's the kind of actor that has a face that will let him continue on. It's kind of one of those things, you know, that some people are lucky that way, and I think he might be one of those, and that's good for him. I'm not bashing him or anything. I'm happy for him.
The Huntsman plays his role well. Thor is always good if he's given a big, heavy weapon to wield around.
Chris Hemsworth, not Thor.
No, he's Thor. Let's face it, he's Thor.
I don't like seeing him in normal roles. That's why I like The Cabin in the Woods and stuff. I try to stay away from those films.
He is good in the fantasy role, but he does a good job. Easily, Charlize Theron runs away with the entire film.
Yes.
And when you compare the lines that everyone else says compared to hers, it seems like she literally threw out her script and just went with it, and the director could do nothing about it. And she comes off as better for it.
Definitely. Yeah, she has some of the well-written lines, because it's kind of like you've grown sometimes when you hear everyone talk, because it's just like, are you serious? It's like watching a Bollywood film where it's like it's so scripted. That's the word, scripted. Like people don't like it, even in normal fantasy, even though fantasy is scripted, they're talking like they would talk, right? It's like conversation, but or it's very dramatic, like the Queen does. But in this, it's so scripted. It's like that. I'll never see
the call to arms speech that Kristen Stewart does. I would rather die than live another day in this death. What the hell does that mean?
I mean, it makes sense. I can see where they're trying to go with it. It's a nice attempt. It's a nice attempt.
It's a very meh film.
The problem with that is there wasn't enough build-up for it. I mean, the greatest speeches you have is in Theoden. Right before they're all like, death! You felt so much emotion in that. And that speech is written, like, there's the build-up for that is so good. And then you feel all that emotion, but now it just...
And then she starts talking about iron as her starting point. We've never talked about that in the film. What are you talking about? And there's a lot of stuff in that film that simply does not make sense. The amount of time that it takes to get to the Duke's castle. There's a character that crosses the breadth of that journey twice before he joins up with them and goes there once.
Yes. I think this is why I looked this up on Rotten Tomatoes. The critics gave this movie a bad review, but the fans, like the general populace, liked it. And this is one of those films where, like, you'll see where it's like it succeeds just because it has those aspects of it that people will be able to forgive all the bad things about the film.
It draws a crowd. It's visually very nice, but like the action sequences are fairly pedestrian. The thematic elements aren't really all that great. It's a very dry film.
It is.
But Charlize Theron and the visual styles make this one worth seeing, and actually, oddly enough, because of its visual style, you gotta see it in theaters. Because it's not gonna be the same thing on a rental.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, and I think I did enjoy it more because it was in theater. I liked seeing all the snow, it looked really good. And
the shard monsters, they look fantastic.
They looked really, really good. And so that's why... So what would you rate it?
On a scale of 1 to 5, I'd give it maybe 3.2. Like,
I was gonna give it a 3.5. Yeah, it's in the middle. Like, aesthetically, I'll give it a 5. Story-wise, I'll give it a 1. Put it together, you get a middle point. So
exactly, yeah. It does its job. It is somewhat entertaining. And Hemsworth brings a nice amount of, like, sort of chuckling to it. So it is what it is.